In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Mightiest. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, I declare on behalf of the Parliament of Afghanistan that democracy is one of the pillars of our society and the protector of human freedoms has faded, and the decay of civil liberties and human rights is upon us. Every day, the people of Afghanistan are suffering under clear violations of human rights, fundamental civil rights, restrictions of freedom, and deprivation of education for girls. And the United Nations now considers more than 90% of Afghanistan population below the poverty line. Excellency, Mr. President, esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen, we witnessed 2 years of peace talks between representatives of the United States, the Taliban, and the Afghan government in Qatar. During this time, I and other politicians repeatedly shared our views with the leadership of the then government about the need for a tangible outcome to the peace talks, the importance of preserving the gains of the past 20 years, and the Republican system. All our views, however, fell on deaf ears. In my meetings and discussions with the speakers of other parliaments, ambassadors, diplomats, and officials of international organizations, I emphasized how discriminatory policies or organized corruption among government leadership were negatively impacting the peace process. Afghanistan's 17th parliament under my leadership was stronger, younger, more educated, and had more female participation. In enhancing our institutions and developing our capacity for state building, we all made major efforts to consolidate our democracy. Because of this, the Afghan parliament had enormous popular support and legitimacy among the Afghan people, and still does. The Afghan people and the international community had high hopes for the outcome of the peace talks and were eagerly waiting for an official announcement to end the war and establish a power-sharing government. However, our international allies decided to withdraw their forces. This decision caused the Republican system to collapse and allowed the Taliban to seize power. The collapse of the Republican system led to the invasion of Afghanistan by the Taliban, whose brutal rule has resulted in thousands of deaths from revenge killings, senseless violence, and terrorist attacks since mid-August. More than 100,000 young and skilled professionals, political leaders, and civil society activists have left the country. Many tens of thousands of government workers who remain in the country now stay at home in fear. Most schools for girls were closed as our governments run universities. The country's defense and security institutions have been dismantled, and thousands of ISIS prisoners and violent criminals have been released from prison. Mr. President, as the elected Speaker of the Afghan Parliament, I have a duty to present this uncensored truth about the situation within Afghanistan to this very important conference and to the attention of the nations of the world. In Afghanistan, the current constitution and hundreds of other laws have been repealed or reserved. All obligation of the Republican government to international conventions, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Charter of United Nations have been revoked. There are no courts, representative bodies of any sort, and no parliament. The Taliban regime sets rules in accordance with the personal and ideological beliefs and perceptions of its leadership and a small group of constituents. Lack of market understanding, lack of basic goods, a significant decline in investment capital flight, closure of domestic and international NGOs due to distrust, and cessation of trade have led to rising unemployment, inflation, and rising prices. Because so many Afghans are unable to earn a livelihood, the country has plunged into poverty and hunger. The World Food Organization now considers 90% of Afghanistan population below the poverty line. Today, Afghanistan has become the most preferred destination for international terrorists. There is no government or military in the country monitoring or trying to control the activities of more than 20 terrorist groups, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The risk of further concentration of these terrorist groups and their ability to launch attacks against the interests of neighboring countries and the world increases day by day. As the Speaker of the Parliament and representative of the Afghan people, I must warn you that if the international community disregards the threats posed by the Taliban regime and their terrorist allies, then Afghanistan will have very dangerous consequences for the security of the region and the world. In conclusion, Afghanistan must have an inclusive national government with all ethnic, religious, linguistic, and religious minorities, civil society, and skilled professionals able to see themselves in the mirror of power. If not, I fear a bloody civil war will start to unfold, and ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other terrorist groups will turn the country into a safe haven without pressure from the international community for inclusivity, representation, and further food and humanitarian aid. So many innocent Afghan people will die from poverty and hunger, and countless more will suffer under the tyranny of a brutal authoritarian regime.